Good morning. Good morning. I'd like to thank everybody for coming for this memorial.
We're talking about government.
Okay, this day is sacred. We honor the memory of those that gave their lives in the service of our country and those others who have dropped their burdens by the wayside and serviced their country. May the ceremonies of today deepen our reverence for our departed friends and comrades. Let us renew our pledge of loyalty to our country and its flag. Let us resolve by word and deed the privilege and duty of patriotism. Our nation has assembled to honor its heroic dead. Because of them, our lives are free. Because of them, our nation lives. Comrades, on this Memorial Day, let us pledge ourselves anew to patriotic service. Let us make ourselves the friends and brother, son, and father of those who will not see their loved ones again in mortal flesh. Okay, at this time, I'll read a list of the deceased members of our West Noble American Legion post that have passed away this year. Ernest Ernie Eugene Faught, Joseph C. Fulford, Ronald Ray Hefner, Johnny D. Sparks, Paul Reed, Dale R. Halsey, John Joseph Shadell, Joseph Willard Ryder, Robert A. Bourne, Floyd F. Doc Warren, Steve C. Prince, Ricky Beckner, Paul Fenning. In our auxiliary, we have had Francis Irving, Ruth Elijah, and Paula Ginrich. And out of our SAL group, Sons of the Legion, Lauren G. Bishop and Tom Irving have all passed. And as a token of our memory, would youth please place the flowers at the flag? Thank you. The flowers may wither, but the spirit of which they are a symbol of will endure until the end of time. Rick, did you want to speak?
How you doing? Can everybody hear me okay? I'm here today. I wasn't in the service, but I love our country and I love our military and our first responders. So I'm here like you guys are today to honor them. I had a little story to tell you. Last year, I went to the Legion to all-you-could-eat fish and chicken dinners for cancer. And you that know me know I do show up at a few of those things. And after it was over, I was talking to Andy Anderson. I asked him if he had any flags there that were for sale. And he looked in the closet. He said, "I'm glad you reminded me. I have one left." And I thought, this is great. We looked at it and it was made here. All of our soldiers that died were from here, most of them. So I said, that's great. So then I thought, now I got to get a pole made here. I have to get a rope made here. And for some reason, That flag sat in my, well, I call it my man cave. My wife calls it other things. It sat in there. It sat in there for a few months. And I was down at the Knights. I belonged to the Knights in Syracuse. And one of our members brought up that in the nursing home, there were some veterans that weren't being visited. And so I interrupted them, and they said, wait a minute. I said, no, when you're big, you can do that sometimes. And I said, no, we don't have a minute. You got a bunch of veterans in here. You can't forget your veterans anywhere. So I told them, I said, we got to do something about this. And they said, okay, we're going to put you in the head of that, whatever you want to do. So I got a couple other guys together, and we started visiting. And at Christmas, right before Christmas, I found out who one of the veterans was, World War II veterans. And I'm not good at wrapping presents, so I had my wife wrap that flag up. And I had her put a little tag on it. And I put, thank you for your service. And I took it in, and she said, I can introduce you to him. She took me up to his table. He was eating. And I told him, I said, you don't know who I am, but I know who you are. I said, you were fighting for my country. You and your buddies were fighting for my country, and a lot of them died before I was born. I said, this isn't much, but I'd like to give you this, and if you would like, I'll come back and visit you. And I will bring other people with me. And he said, that'd be great. So we did that a couple times, and then this coronavirus hit. So I knew that these people still couldn't be forgotten. So what I did was I went up there. I had my great-grandkids draw a bunch of stuff, and I drew probably the ugliest flag you ever see. I'm not good at drawing. I'm sure the 2-year-old drew better than I did, but I put on the back of there, you didn't forget me and I didn't forget you. And they asked if I buzzed the door, put my mask on, and they said, do you want these in the rooms or do you want these outside the rooms? I said, however our veterans want them. If they want them in their room, put them in their room. If they want them outside the room, put them outside the room, and tell them that we haven't forgotten them, that we'll be back. A few days ago, I went to the Legion and asked them if they had some flags. There was a cemetery out in the field by our house, a little cemetery. They got a few people in there. One of them's a Civil War vet. I wanted to make sure they weren't forgotten. So I took them to my buddy. He used to take care of that cemetery, but he doesn't anymore. His dad was a World War II vet, and his wife's father was in the Navy. So I knew he would take them back there. He took him the next day on his birthday. Him and his wife got on 4-wheelers, and they took him back, and they said, somebody already took care of the cemetery, and they did put flags on there. The flags I had left, I decided to take to the nursing home, except for 2. I had orders to keep 2 of them, which is a good thing. My wife kind of told me to keep 2 of them. So I took them to the nursing home, and I rang the bell. I put my mask on, rang the bell, and when they came to the door, I told them, I don't know how many veterans you have for sure. If you have enough to give them to every veteran or put outside their room, do it. If you do not, put them in the halls and tell them that we haven't forgot any of them. So we did that. We had a breakfast for the community on Mother's Day. We got $1,000, and we matched that for food. The food bank here, I've been getting food and taking it all over and taking it there. Food banks. There's our first responders and our military do great jobs all the time. They're always heroes. They're always there for us. So we can't forget them. I put one flag on the telephone pole for our veterans. Remember, our veterans have fought and died for us. I put the other flag in a little garden that my wife has for my son that died in memory of all our first responders, doctors, nurses, police, firefighters. So that's what we use those 2 flags for. No matter what, you cannot forget your veterans. I don't care if there's one flag or one veteran out in a field somewhere, you've got to make sure, because they didn't forget you. So there's a lot of organizations out there that help people and do it all the time, just not during a pandemic. You don't need to do it during a pandemic. The Knights is one of them. And if you're a Catholic and you're male over 18, we'd be glad to have you. There's also all kinds of other organizations. There's Red Cross, there's Salvation Army. People can help each other all the time. Some of it is just a matter of time spent there. It doesn't cost you anything. People should be doing that all the time, just not during a pandemic. I'd like to thank all of you, and you have a good day. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. Nathan, would you come forward?
Good morning. Most of you probably don't know who I am, probably don't know too much about my history, but I'm one of those that is a history buff, and I will research anything to find out about things that have occurred throughout the world. One of the neat things is I've actually done research on my entire family, and one of the things that, as I was researching, I found out that my great uncle, his name was A.C. Dobler, served during World War II. He was awarded the Bronze Star, awarded the Bronze Star, and I've got an article that I'd like to read that kind of talks about his accommodation. And I'm not going to make any assumptions that any of you have had anybody serve and die in the military, but this really rings close to my heart. Even though I never met him, I never knew him, he sacrificed a lot for the freedom of many. All right, the article reads, Private Totes Buddy Half Mile. Private A.C. Dobler of the 357th Infantry played the role of a pack horse under heavy enemy fire in a recent action to evacuate a wounded buddy from a position of extreme danger. According to the award recommendation, which has been forwarded to the proper authorities, Private Dobler first distinguished himself by carrying a wounded man from a field to an adjacent highway where motor transportation was available for the remainder of the journey to the aid station. Private Dobler reported to the litter crews that he knew of another man who lay injured in another field nearly a kilometer away. The enemy fire was so intense at the time, it was virtually impossible for a group of men to successfully negotiate the open terrain. On his own initiative, Dobler started back to the wounded man. With all possible speed, he reached his companion, and using the shoulder carry, managed to stagger half a mile back to the highway with the casualty on his back. The man was taken to a nearby aid station. The feat, a gallant one in itself, was doubly meritorious in that Private Dobler is one of the smallest men in the regiment, standing about 5 feet 6 inches tall. As I said, he served, and this happened in July of 1944. 6 months later, on January 10th of 1945, my great uncle died during the Battle of the Bulge. One of the things that amazes me about this story is that this man, who, like it says, was only 5 foot 6 inches tall, was willing to risk his own life while trying to save one of his fellow comrades. He literally laid down his life for his friend. John chapter 15, verse 13 says, "My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend." In this passage, John is quoting something that Jesus said prior to his crucifixion on the cross. Jesus was willing to sacrifice his own life, not only for those around him, but for all mankind. In the past and currently day by day, the members of the military forces, if need be, have been willing to lay down their lives for not only their friends, but for a cause that they believe in. Take this into the civilian world. There's a special group of people that are doing the same day after day. I'm talking about the police, firefighters, doctors, and nurses. Ever since this pandemic started, these individuals have tirelessly acted without concern for their own lives. I know that during this time we typically talk about the fallen heroes, but I think there's another part that we're missing. When I was growing up, one of the things that was talked about during this weekend was service. Service to family, service to friends, service to community, and service to the country. Even though this was before my time, John F. Kennedy said some inspiring words. The 17 most inspiring words in the 20th century American history were spoken by John F. Kennedy around midday on January 20th, 1961, in Washington, D.C. The occasion was his presidential inauguration. As he was concluding his inaugural address, he said, "Born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and pledged to pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, in order to assure the survival of the success of liberty." Soon after, he spoke these 17 words. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Those words were positively electrifying. No president had ever challenged citizens in peacetime to sacrifice or commit to a larger vision. With that single sentence, Kennedy inspired people to new possibilities. He raised their expectations of themselves and of the nation. Apostle Paul said in Philippians 2:1-8, "Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort in his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and one of mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interests of others. In your relationships with others, have the same mindset as that of Christ Jesus." Who, being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, being found in appearance as man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even to the cross. You know, as I look at this crowd, I am proud that you guys have come out. But I believe in some way America has lost its drive for service. It shows a lot of service, shows by a lot of service organizations closing the doors because membership has died off. Some local, like the Elks Lodge in Ligonier, the Eagles Lodge in Ligonier, the local Scouts. Even our beloved Marshmallow Festival is seeing a lack of people stepping up to volunteer. Another that I know is that of the Woodburn American Legion in Woodburn, Indiana. I say this mainly to try to encourage all of you to take a step out and serve not only your friends, your family, but your community and the country. I'm not saying that you have to join any organization, but I encourage you to encourage your friends to serve. Thank you.
Color Guard, salute the dead.
Honor guard. Take hut. Port arm. Ready? Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Present arm. Honor guard. Order arm. Dismissed.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. This includes our ceremony here. We do have one at the bridge on Martin Street, there close to the American